All right. Madam Clerk, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, we're good in the back. Elizabeth, are you ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have been fixing a few technical issues here. As you know, we are still in the midst of our COVID-19 pandemic, so we still don't have the chambers open, and we are participating for this meeting via Zoom. So thank you for joining us via Zoom this morning with that. And so with that, I'll have the Vice Chair, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I appreciate that. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Certainly. Bob Lucy, Chair.
Here.
Marcia Burke-Bickler, Vice Chair.
Here.
Kitty Jung via telephone.
Present.
Von Hartog via Zoom.
Here.
Jeannie Herman.
Here.
County Manager Eric Brown. Assistant District Attorney Dave Watts-Vial
Nate Edwards this morning and present
via Zoom or telephone.
via Zoom.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate that. And before we jump into public comment, I want to make some announcements in regards to our agenda this morning. We are going to adjust the agenda and take some items off. So upon recommendation from the commission and in public, we are going to be pulling items 9, 10, and 11 today to be heard at a later time and date when the chambers are back open for public to attend and make public comment in person. Also, we will be continuing agenda item 16, which is a public hearing. We will still hear the public hearing and open the public hearing for public comment since it's been agendized and posted for the appeal, but we will be continuing that and not taking a decision on that today. So that will be continued for to a later meeting. So with that, Mr. Manager, we are on to item 3, which is public comment.
Item 3, public comment. Test, okay. Item 3 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. Commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
Great, thank you. So we do have some public comment this morning, and we have a voicemail from Miss Anne Marie Grant, and so I will ask the clerk to play that now for us.
County Commissioner meeting 6/19/2020. Anne Marie Grant for the record, brother, sister of Thomas Purdy, murdered by Reno PD and Washoe County deputies. As you know, Washoe County has had 3 of their own George Floyds up at Park, including my brother. These were my brother's last words to your deputies. Please don't do this. Don't do this, guys. I know, but don't do this, please. You guys could be a lot better people. Oh, please don't do this, please. My father's going to wonder why I didn't get my call. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. Ow, ow. I'll relax. All right. My father's going to sue you guys and own you. Please. All right. This is all being recorded, right? Medical then comes. I had major lung surgery and I need an ambulance. I need an ambulance. Why do you need an ambulance, sir? I can't breathe. No, no, no. Ow. Please, 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 please. This doesn't need to be done this way. Please, this could have been done a better way. Why wouldn't you guys just bring charges against me? Why would you guys do this to me? Ow, ow. I can't relax, man. No, ow, ow. Hey, do you see what they're doing to me? Ow, ow. Please, 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 please just send me to the hospital. I can't breathe, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, major lung surgery. I just told you that. I can't play this game anymore. It's all on video. They're killing me. They're gonna kill me. Hey, please don't do this. Ow, 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 please, ow, 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 they're gonna kill me, they're gonna kill me, ow, please don't do this, guys, please don't do this, please don't do this, ow, no, no, all right, why, ow, those were my brother's last words. You didn't want to hear it on the video, but here's some of it. Let's see some changes before more families know the nightmare mine does.
All right, that voicemail will be placed into the record for Miss Anne Marie Grant. Next, we have an email submitted to us from Tammy Holt Still, and I'll ask the clerk to read that into the record, please.
As the chairman indicated, this is an email from Tammy Holtstill. Due to the fact that we cannot be in chambers during this meeting and have to do this by mail, I am opposing the meeting due to the violation of the open meeting law. I do not believe this will be read on the record in its entirety, nor will the commissioners take the time to read. Our voices and input are required by law is not afforded to us. This is a one-sided conversation to our government, which is to represent all of us, not just a few. I have sent public comment on items 9, 10, and 11. There is something I neglected to add to 10 and 11. The cost is close to $300,000 for feasibility studies, not actual action. Do you really think it is a wise decision to spend that much money on just words instead of actual action? The state has over $800 million shortfall, and that does affect your coffers. Is this really the proper fiscal thing to spend money on just a feasibility studies? Commissioner Herman has submitted several supported actions for Swan Lake and Lemon Valley, and this board has ignored every attempt she has made. So why take any action now? What's in it for you? I believe this is for Prado and North Valley's investment. Your timing says everything. It goes back to fiduciary responsibility to the citizens who put you in office, not the developers. Tammy Holtstill, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And then we have an email from Mr. Daniel Purdy, and we'll have the clerk read that into the record.
This is an email from Daniel Purdy, brother of Thomas Purdy, murdered by Washoe deputies and Reno PD. Hogtied for 40 minutes. Your local law enforcement has talked about accountability and transparency, never once bringing up the failures of their own agencies. Like my brother, Nico Smith, and Justin Thompson's, Washoe County's own George Floyd's, I'm sure you are so disturbed by what happened to George Floyd, yet none of you were affected by the 3 asphyxiation deaths up at Par under your watch. Did you ever reach out to any of those families or the multiple families who have had a loved one shot and killed in our county? Doubt it. You approved an additional $1 million to the body cam budget, so where's the footage? That was
All right.
all for Mr. Purdy.
Thank you. And then we have an email from Ms. Carol Black.
Submitted by Carol Black in Klein Village residents. A year ago, residents were promised that a comprehensive parking plan/ordinance would be expeditiously developed and promulgated by Washoe County to address multiple significant traffic/parking safety issues, which had become increasingly worrisome, particularly during busy seasons. Some steps taken have included spot interventions, and I understand that a comprehensive plan is in progress, which we hope to be able to review/comment on. Admittedly, there have been other priority issues at hand, particularly COVID-19. However, with current reopening movement and no significant restrictions on STRs, which have been a major contributor, traffic, parking, safety issues remain and are resurfacing. Specifically, I again draw your attention to IV parking and congestion concerns in relation to Tunnel Creek and East Lake Tahoe Trail. Residents have raised concerns about this trail remaining fully open with no volume/social distancing controls for several months. Tunnel Creek parking has now apparently become paid and Sand Harbor capacity and access limited, putting more strain on Incline Village and Route 28. Most disturbingly, a June 3rd press release from TTD announcing the summer 2020 closure of Sand Harbor Express with explanation of the rationale, including the following invitation. Newly installed paid parking facilities near Tunnel Creek provide additional options to access the numerous viewpoints, beaches, and coves along this National Scenic Byway, Route 28, including access to the Tahoe East Shore Trail. There were also comments about parking limits in parts of Route 28 and advice to recreate close to home, which were helpful, but why was the above statement added? It is completely unnecessary and advertised for more visitors to visit an area with, as TTD is well aware, inadequate and some unsafe parking, no usage controls, and where adequate social distancing isn't occurring. In addition, per users, with closure of Sand Harbor Terminus, there aren't even sufficient sanitary facilities. I realize that TTD and the trail/park are somewhat separate from Washoe County. Nonetheless, there is leadership/oversight overlap, and Washoe County is responsible for parking regulations in Incline Village. Help us. We need a comprehensive and safe parking/traffic control plan/program, which includes limiting access to the ELTT based on safe volume thresholds now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Anything else submitted this morning?
Not on
from your
item
office?
3.
Okay. And do we have anybody via Zoom this morning wishing to speak? All right. Seeing no one on that, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board. We're on to item 4, Commissioner and County Manager's announcements. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In terms of my announcements for this morning, I'd just like to thank Governor Sisolak for holding a closed-door session in the Capitol on Friday, to which I was invited to discuss the topics of social justice in the wake of the recent events, both here in Reno and nationally. Very productive discussion amongst community leaders. I look forward to sharing more of those insights with you individually in the days ahead. Again, I found that the governor and his team listened, and there were some concrete next steps that folks will be pursuing. So I just like to acknowledge that. Secondly, in the area of COVID-19 and our testing progress here in the county, I'd like to point out that since June 1st, so over the last couple of weeks, we have gotten the average daily testing rate up to over 850 a day. Actually, last Friday, here at the Post on 9th Street, we tested over 463 individuals that morning. That same day, over 290 folks in Incline Village were tested. We've also, over the last week, set up posts in Gerlach, the Indian colonies. And next week, I think the 26th and 27th, there will be testing set up at Miguel Rivera Park over by Meadowood Mall. In addition, RIMSA is doing testing in-home for those that need that service. And the Health District continues to test in nursing homes and other high-risk facilities. So kudos to the Health District. They've made a lot of progress, and I believe Washoe County Health District is now second in the state among health districts. We've tested about just over 8% of our population. I think Clark County is right behind us at right around 7%. So just thought I'd provide those updates. I know Aaron Keniston is on the agenda next to give you an update on the Edison housing, and the health officer is also available later if you have questions. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Manager. Do we have any Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I just wanted to put on the record one request that we possibly consider as a result of the CARES Act money that was released to us by the governor. And I'm sure there's a number of people who are putting their hands out asking for money right now. But one of the things I think might be beneficial is if we could set up a fund. I don't know how big it would have to be to really make it worthwhile, but maybe 500,000 set aside for local small businesses who didn't get any money from the two tranches that came from the federal government. So I know one is called PPE. I don't remember what the other one's called, but there were two tranches from the feds. And I know there are some small businesses that didn't get any money from that. And as they begin to reopen, this local small businesses, this would be an opportunity for the county to help them get back up and running so that we are really opening business back up in this community. So I think that might be something we should look at. I know that the city of Las Vegas and Clark County have already started to look at putting this plan in place, and we could sort of play off of their rules or look at their rules and set our own rules up, whatever we decide to do. But I think that this plan would be beneficial and would really help our small and local businesses get reopened. So I wanted to put that on the record as something that we might look at as we start moving forward.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioner Herman, do you have anything this morning? All right. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Madam Vice Chair, I'm glad you brought that up. In fact, that was one of the recommendations that I had in the white paper that I crafted some weeks ago with respect to small businesses and having a fund that we could assist them with even business modifications, maybe putting up plexiglass and et cetera, because some of them may just not have the money and may not be able to reopen. And it's well worth it to try to get them open to not only keep the businesses viable, but of course the employees. And so that's I'm glad you brought that up. That's a wonderful suggestion. Mr. Chairman, I certainly don't want to step on your toes. If you're going to bring up Alexander Lake Road, I'd just like to have staff at some point bring back an item for us where they can explain who and why we have Alexander Lake Road closed to pedestrian and bicycle traffic. I know there's some safety issues, but I think it's important for us to just articulate those. And that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only update is to thank our county manager, Mr. Brown, for his leadership during not only the COVID-19 and his prior professional experience as a telehealth deliverer executive, as well as healthcare executive, and moving right along into our social justice issues that we are facing as a nation and as a community. And I want to thank him for all of those roles and bringing that to the table at a time that just feels more than synchronicity and a whole lot more like destiny. And I'm not really woo-woo, as you all know. I love science, but it's revealing its way in a way that keeps me forever in awe of how the universe does evolve. And on to the social justice issue, one of the things that I've been thinking about is I think every single one of us as community members here, a patriotic act is also being better friends to each other and being better neighbors to each other, no matter what our circumstances are or what the past has brought up. The stillness of the COVID-19, as well as the social outcry for civil rights, I think the bottom line that we can all agree on is let's be better friends and let's be better neighbors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. We appreciate that. I do have some brief comments, but Commissioner Hartung already pointed on it, just kind of that update on the Alexander lanes, just so we can make sure that people are safely recreating in an area that's safe to recreate and not necessarily on a haul road where we have lots of truck traffic and individuals that service our detention ponds up there for Stumwharf. Another discussion I want to have, it has been a very challenging couple weeks or 3 weeks since we've last convened as the county commission. And Commissioner Jung's exactly right. We've gone, this is a very interesting time that has allowed for some massive changes, and I would call it the catalyst to a new era of what we have to how we legislate, how we write draft laws, and what we do within our community, whether it's from a standpoint of COVID-19, a standpoint of social challenges within our community. It's very difficult, and it's going to take mindful leaders that are going to have to come out and really help craft what that future looks like. And so I look forward to that challenge. I know we've always been conscientious of what we do here, but with an ever-changing environment, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's not necessarily for me, but it's for the future of our communities, our kids that are out there that that rely upon us to make those decisions so that they can live in an environment that they feel safe and secure in. I did get some great news this morning. As of this morning, we were able to move a majority of our women out of the downtown Reno Event Center and either to our place. So we have a good, solid population of individuals, family and women over at the Our Place facility now, which will be the new place for those people to find services and for those individuals. So I want a big shout out to Manager Brown, Director Amber Howell, and Assistant County Manager Kate Thomas for all their work on making sure, and our Community Services Department, everybody that's really helped out. Our DA's office have been really very functional, and the state. I can't forget the state. Governor Sisolak and also Governor Sandoval were very influential in making this happen. So this is going to be tremendous for our community. So we're very happy that this is coming online. And I want to thank the other commissioners that supported this initiative. This board has been very supportive of that for a long time coming. So we look forward to how that continues to grow. We're always at the forefront, it seems like, whether it's Crossroads or Our Place or Sober 24, how we continue to evolve and be proactive in offering different types of treatment for individuals versus than not just forgetting who they are as people and really playing to our strengths. So congratulations to all those involved on this massive achievement. Other than that, I have nothing. Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also should address the issue of parking in Incline Village, since Ms. Black did send us an email concerned about it. I know that our staff is working directly with IVGID staff on trying to find out how we would allow for boat parking up on the at the parking lot for the ski resort. There's some technical issues and some legal issues that are involved with that, so I know our staff are working on that, and so we are in the process of doing it. This is not something we put on the back burner. We have really been working through this and trying to get it through. We also have a number of signs. Our staff have met with both Indra Winquist from IVGID as well as Sarah Schmidt, who's a IVGID board member, and they have walked through where the signs are going to go and all of these different things. And so the parking issue in Incline is in the process of being worked with staff, and with Mr. Brown's leadership, he has done a good job of really working with the staff to address some of the long-term concerns for Incline Village as it relates to parking and traffic. So I just wanted to go on the record and make sure we get that out so that Ms. Black knows we're not ignoring them.
Great. You know, and I wanted to, one last thing I want to add too, is that obviously most of us watched Governor Sisolak's press conference last night in regards to the COVID-19 response. I know it's challenging. I know this has been a very difficult experience for many people, but I can't stress enough that even though we're still in phase 2 and he's extended that we still need to be vigilant about how we do, how we operate in public, how we still participate in businesses throughout our community. I know it's not convenient to wear a face mask. I know it's not convenient to always do social distancing, and it's challenging. But realize that you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for those around you. Please make those decisions consciously when you're out in the public. We are seeing a 7-day uptick trend across the state. And we had anticipated that with the massive testings that were, the increase in testing throughout the community. But we need to be more vigilant about that and really to help maintain the ability for our hospitals to address this issue as those become more of a process. We do have more positive cases today than we did in active positive cases than we have in weeks past. So things to be cautious of. So please be vigilant for this. That's my plea to all of you, so that we can continue to move forward and get back to some semblance of a normal lifestyle eventually. With that, is there anything else? Anybody else? All right. Seeing no further commissioner or county manager's announcement, we'll close that item and we will take it to item 5. Mr. Manager.
Yes, item 5 is an appearance by Aaron Keniston, Washoe County Emergency Management Administrator, to discuss the emergency housing project on Edison Way to include the requirements, rules, and eligibility for use.
Great. Mr. Keniston, are you with us?
I am.
All right.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Manager Brown, staff, citizens, I'm Aaron Keniston, your County Emergency Manager, and I'm here with a quick discussion of non-congregate medical housing in general and our Edison complex in particular. Can you see the slides?
We cannot.
Okay, well,
I think you'll need to share your screen again, Aaron.
okay, let's try that again and see if this works any better. How about that?
There we go.
There we go.
We can see it
Great,
now.
okay.
Great.
I'm even entering the 21st century here. Okay, so thank you. As you, let's see if I can make the slides change. My apologies, I'm not sure why I'm not, there we go. Okay, so where I want to start is, doing a quick recollection of where we were as we brought our incident management team on board to assist. You remember the, I guess I'll call them shocking pictures as we looked at counties, cities around the country, around the world, portable mortuary units, converting warehouses into temporary hospitals and shelters. And against that backdrop, we began our process here locally. And at the time, state and federal authorities had estimated up to 10,000 or more of our citizens might need this sheltering. That's why we had the renown in their big project for alternate care sites, the medical tents that were erected at St. Mary's and Northern Nevada, the plans with the Corps of Engineers to build out the convention center as the alternate care site, and the Edison complex for sheltering. The district health officer, in concurrence with federal guidance, established 4 potential bases of people that might need isolation and quarantine. And the first one was COVID positive citizens who could not isolate at home. Maybe they had medically frail people, family, and it did not make sense. They needed another place to isolate. Also, COVID positive citizens in congregate settings could be, for example, our homeless population, and others, maybe CDC vulnerable populations, elderly, medical frail, in congregate settings who couldn't isolate. And then the 4th category were our first responders, healthcare workers who needed to quarantine. We had to restrict their movement to not expose their family because perhaps they've been in contact with COVID positive individuals. So from that came the non-congregate medical sheltering in our region. I suppose hospitals are the ultimate non-congregate shelter. In addition to that, Assistant County Manager Kate Thomas was instrumental in helping us secure WellCare, 43 beds. The advantage to this facility was it had these so-called wraparound services, people that needed additional medical care, maybe some substance issues. Also, Homewood Suites were established by the team for responders and workers, 24 rooms. In addition to these 67 rooms was the Edison complex for large surges, and it consisted of 300 beds. Just a quick overview of how citizens would be placed into these shelters. There are really kind of three primary places they come from. The most frequent is citizens that are being discharged from the hospital, and the hospital is saying they need some type of additional care, or they're COVID positive. Also, the health district's epidemiology team would make referrals as well. Also, our human services agency, the homeless shelters, for example, could refer people that would need this sheltering. And then the third way is citizens that called our community hotline and self-identified. And from these three inputs, our housing placement team goes through a screening process. Now, the actual screening process is about 12 pages of questions and prompts to kind of better understand what is the need of the individual and what is the situation of the individual. Again, most of the referrals we've had fit into this category of citizens that have some type of significant additional need. We've categorized them into high complex needs, or standard with higher needs. And those are the candidates that are a good fit with WellCare and their wraparound services. Again, we've had first responders that have needed isolation and quarantine as well. We've had about 10 of them placed at Homewood. And then the category that best fits the Edison location, which are standard no high needs. So someone that just simply needs, they're positive, they're awaiting results, they don't have additional need or wraparound services, they just need a place to isolate or quarantine. Now, just quickly, the collective efforts of our entire community have been successful thus far in the so-called flattening of the curve, and you'll notice that's reflected in the placements to WellCare, and this is a chart from HSA. But the key takeaway here is of those 43 rooms, we've yet to approach 50% occupancy. I believe today we're about 14 or 15%. But WellCare has received a lot of use with COVID positive that, again, have these additional medical needs. Now let's focus in a little bit on the Edison complex. I presume you're fairly familiar with it. We have these 60 disaster trailers. You may see, I believe there's still about 40 of them over by the Alamo truck stop in Sparks. They were used previously at the Paradise Fire to house workers. They were emplaced on some property owned by the Truckee River Flood Management Authority that FEMA had previously paid us to raise the buildings for the Living River flood capacity. Because of that, the utilities were removed, but we were able to quickly bring above ground utilities to the trailer, bring in some personnel support, which is a management team, and security to make sure they're protecting our investment. You may be aware that there's a large transient population that are living in that area as well. Here's a little deeper dive onto the equipment and the services that we have there at Edison currently. I mentioned the trailers, ACTO trailers. There's an outfit called Cotton Logistics. They're known around the world. They move from disaster to disaster, providing management and logistics services. Martin Ross Security is there, again, to protect our investment, I should say. QuickSpace has set up portable tents. There's some office space, restroom. We have lighting and light towers, and of course, utilities. Now, upon activation of the site, we have not activated this time, but upon activation, the additional services that come in, refrigerated trailer for food, feeding services, the same vendor that takes care of the convention center, and they've made some exceptions. Typically, there's a minimum, but they've said that they'll feed any quantity. It's around $40, $50 a day for feeding. And then laundry services. There's a large laundry complex there that can decon, if you will, clothing that's been infected with COVID. And there's a dirty side, a clean side to do laundry services. And then perhaps, we have not fully worked through this piece, but perhaps if well care and hospitals were overwhelmed, we could provide wraparound services there as well. So that's my brief overview. Just a couple other points. The Edison complex is actually fairly cost effective. If the 300 beds are full, it works out to $70 per person per day. Then of course, additional for the meals. The interesting point right now, we're on the horns of a dilemma, I would say, because we haven't identified these qualified placements to activate it. But yet, the empty site does incur costs. We've had, with some of our high winds, we've had to repair the fencing, for example, around it. The golf carts that are used to move management security around, there's a cost for repair of those. And we've discovered that when you have 300 commodes and sinks, that they drip and things, run. And we used about 70,000 gallons of water this past month. So we're correcting that. The challenge is that, we have to be careful not to have shall I say, a solution in search of a problem. We need to ensure that we have the correct occupants so we don't jeopardize the FEMA reimbursement for the facility. But again, it's a large asset that's there and available to us. One of the challenges that we're going to have to look at in the very near future, I recommend, is the fact that the Edison trailer lease expires in September. There will be quite a bit of teardown required to release the trailers. And the challenge is that if we go past September, again, the utility lines, water, sewage, those types of things are above ground, and we'll have to make an investment if we desire to keep it to winterize the project. And again, it's in a flood zone, but that's the situation right now with our non-congregate sheltering in our region and Edison in particular. And subject to your questions, that concludes my briefing.
Great, thank you, Mr. Kennison. I appreciate it. Now, are there any comments or questions by the commissioners for Mr. Kennison in regards to the Edison trailer housing unit? Mr. Kennison, if you could do me a favor and go back to your slide in regards to how do we identify an occupant based upon this one right here. Thank you. The housing triage screening process. Now, this is the process that a majority of people are going through. Now, however, though, when we talk about some of the challenges that have been going on at the skilled nursing facility and those workers, are we identifying, working with the state, identifying individuals that may not be able to properly quarantine by themselves in their current housing arrangement, if they are COVID, confirmed COVID or a presumed COVID, can they utilize the trailers if they're obviously they're not a high needs individual, they would just they have needs based upon their current living situation and not continuing to quarantine safely. Would those individuals qualify, like the employees of those skilled nursing facilities?
I would say yes. Now we need to, of course, look at each individual. We thought, it's been a couple weeks, but we thought we had some of our first residents here a couple weeks back. When we went through the screening process on this particular individual, the individual was from, was temporarily here to help at a healthcare facility, was not a resident. And, it appeared that the individual was just, did not want to pay for housing costs, which would not exclude them in and of itself. The second challenge was that, you know, to meet the definition of quarantine means that you're restricting their movement. So they would not, you know, be able to come here at night, sleep, and go to work during the day to meet the definition of a quarantine. The individual that we thought we were going to place then revealed that they had their family with them and wanted the family to stay as well. So I mean, that's not, maybe that's not a representative example, but that's the process that we went through the last time. It certainly is available, and you know, we have no reason not to use it double negative. I mean, we would like to place people there if they meet the qualifications, and I believe we've cast a fairly wide net, but certainly willing to redouble our efforts on that.
And who is the housing placement team?
So the housing placement team is run from the Human Services Agency, and so that's who vets these, in conjunction, of course, with the health district and other individuals that are involved in the incident management.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my questions. Commissioner Hartung, you have some questions for Mr. Kennison?
And actually, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kennison answered them because my question was about people staying there. Do they get to come and go if they're quarantined? And so it dovetailed right into the answer that I was interested in. I knew the answer, but many people think that's a place where they could use it as a, you know, just temporary shelter and still go out in the daytime or whenever. But I'm glad he brought that up. My real question, and this is not one that we would necessarily need to answer, but how do we enforce that? It's and perhaps a rhetorical question. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult if you have someone quarantined there. How do you force them to stay?
Well, if I may, through the chair, we've discussed that at length. There is a discharge process, if you will, where the individual is again screened to make sure they're COVID negative, and the health district actually issues a discharge paper that says, you know, you're clear now and you're able to move back into the community. We have security there, but we would never, you know, take action to try to restrain a citizen. The issue is that if somebody wants to leave, they may, but they would be stopped from, you know, returning, if you will. They'd have to go through the process again to be readmitted, and we'd have to look at it, you know, very carefully, because again, it's not a motel. It's a you know, it's to quarantine, which, you know, the definition is to isolate from others. So that's where we're at right now, sir.
Great.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Jung, do you have anything that you'd like to add today?
I have some questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Kennison. Great update. I asked for this, so this is, and I asked for it to be expedient, and I really appreciate that. Excuse me. When you're speaking of hospital beds, can you tell me or get back to us if you don't know today? This isn't a gotcha. This is can you tell me how many are available that St. Mary's, Northern Nevada, and Renown had constructed outside of their normal care, how long those will stay up, and if they have a deadline, we should convince them to continue to stay up, because Washoe County taxpayers pay for indigent care. So those should be filled up with our people who are less able to care for themselves and more vulnerable, rather than us holding out and paying for other facilities. So I don't know how legal that is, but I do know that I foot all their indigent care bills of anything that happens in Washoe County, which has nothing to do if you live here or not. It has everything to do if you're a taxpayer or not. And then I have a question of, can you find out what would happen to reconnect or winterize the utilities so that we could have this potentially, if the hospitals aren't going to be able to take our indigent care dollars for what I just mentioned, well, how much is that going to cost to winterize the utilities that we reactivated? And then what does it mean when you say that these FEMA trailers are released in September? What all goes into that? What happens to that? Here's my concern. While, of course, I care about the whole world and then the whole country and then the whole state, I think a lot of people will be vying for those trailers because I know they don't have unlimited ones. And since we have them here, what does that look like? How much does it cost, et cetera? Again, if the hospitals can't take our quarantined or otherwise ill, which we pay very well to intubate care for them. And then I also, Mr. Keniston, would need to know, when are we debriefing on what worked and what didn't? And maybe the chair is already involved with that. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about that. But I would like to know what worked, what didn't work. I would like to give my feedback and what it's going to look like when we have to contract, which we know we will come the fall and winter, and what sort of other tools did we not use so well? What tools do we not need to use anymore? They're not the best practice. I need a whole debrief before the end of August, because I would like to see where we're going and give people an idea of the reality of which they're going to face, and recognizing that because we've never done this before, we probably had a lot of unintended consequences. And one of those, I might add, is the short-term rental issue. And that's just one tiny one. I have a whole list, of course, of things that I think we could do better, things that kind of fell flat, et cetera. And as we all know, debriefs are only as good as soon as you can get to them. The more time you get in between stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then we contract again, we've lost all that immediate data that we all have collected ourselves. So those are the end of my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jim. All
And
right.
this is, sir, through the chair, this is Aaron Keniston. I'll do my best to address and then, of course, research. I don't want to misspeak on the number of hospital beds. That's a figure that I've had near me, but I don't have right now. But I will tell you that I'll provide them, and that the largest alternate care facility, the built-out parking garage for Renowned, we've been assured will remain in place through the flu season and with the perceived second wave. Typically, we do after-action reviews at the conclusion of the emergency. In this case, and typically that would happen when the incident management team deactivates, but in this case, the disaster declaration is still open. I share your concern. We're going to have to do some type of in-progress review because we don't have an idea yet when the declaration will be ended. And I apologize, there was a third point I was going to make, but I don't remember the second question that you asked me.
How much would it cost to winterize utilities at the Edison place that we've already invested money in reconnecting utilities that I never thought we should have unconnected, by the way? And I'm on the record for that, back when we turned this into the living river. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, through the chair, I apologize. Yeah, the trailers are on a 6-month lease. The lease ends in September. I share some concern about availability of trailers, but as I said, there's 40 of them by the Alamo truck stop right now, and there's another quantity of them actually out at USA Parkway. To prepare the trailers at the end of the lease, it'd be logical, it'd be about an August timeframe that we'd want to deactivate them for, if we stuck with the 6-month lease that we have. That's going to be about $100,000 to remove the utilities. I don't want to hazard a guess for winterizing, but I will. I'll get an estimate and let you know that as well.
Okay. Seeing no further comments from any of the commissioners, Mr. Kennison, thank you for the very thorough report. I would agree with Commissioner Jung. We do definitely need to do a debrief as soon as possible so that we can kind of go through what the next steps are with not only HSA, but yourself and the manager's office and the health department to identify what the needs are going to be coming up so that we are prepared and we're not wasting extra dollars on stuff that we may already have in place. So, with that, I will close this item, item 5, this appearance, and we were on to item 6. And these are our donations. These are for possible action. And so, Madam Vice Chair, will you read these in for us, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So item 6-1A is a recommendation to accept donations of $8,692.35 from various businesses, organizations, and individuals for our regional parks and open space programs and facilities. This is a really great thing. I won't comment on every one of these, but I hope everybody understands how important our parks and in this time of really tight money with all the stuff that's going on, these donations for our parks and open spaces are fabulous. 6B1 is a recommendation to accept a donation of $9,000 at no cost to the county from Sun Valley General Improvement District to the Washoe County Sheriff's Office for the Sheriff's Office Patrol Division to assist with abandoned vehicle removal and abatement efforts in the Sun Valley area. Hallelujah, that's something we really need. 6B2 is a recommendation to accept one-time appreciation gift donations, estimated value of $1,855 from private citizens to Washoe County Sheriff's Office. Item 6C1 is a recommendation to accept a donation from Safe Kids Washoe County, a coalition of the nonprofit organization Safe Kids Worldwide, to the Washoe County Human Services Agency in the amount of $3,000 to support the purchase of home safety kits for families in need. And 6C2 is a recommendation to, 1, acknowledge various items donated totaling an estimated market value of $5,500, and 2, accept donations to the Human Services Agency Senior Services Fund to support operations of the Washoe County Senior Centers in the amount of $71 retroactive to the period of April 23rd, 2020 through May 15th, 2020. And finally, item 6C3 is a recommendation to, 1, acknowledge various items donated totaling an estimated value of $1,713, and 2, accept donations to Washoe County Human Services Agency to support child welfare activities in the amount of $2,317.25 retroactive to the period of April 1, 2020 through April 30th, 2020. Again, thank you all for all of your participation with donations to all of these special needs and things that are so important to our county. We really appreciate the services that go for our sheriff's office and for our senior citizens, and of course, without question, for our children who we're taking care of in our system. So thank you, everybody, and that is a motion to approve those donations.
Great. Do I have a second? And I have a second from Commissioner Herman. Do I have any public comment on the donations?
I'm not aware of any emails.
Do you have any Zoom? Okay. I have a motion to accept and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Hartung and Commissioner Jung voting in the affirmative via remotely. We are on to item 7, which is our consent agenda, Mr. Manager.
All right, the consent agenda starts with item 7A1, which is approval of the minutes for the Board of County Commissioners meeting, regular meeting of April 28th, 2020. 7A2 is an approval of the minutes for the special meeting on May 7th. 7A3 is acknowledge the communications and reports received by the clerk on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. 7B is recommendation to approve the Blackstone Park Maintenance Agreement between Washoe County and Blackstone Estates Homeowners Association for the ongoing maintenance of the Blackstone Park by the Blackstone Estates Homeowners Association as if it were a park maintained by the county. Item 7C is a recommendation to approve contracts and purchases exceeding $50,000 for emergency costs in response to the impacts due to the COVID-19 crisis, totaling $7,983,193 to date for medical supplies, test kits, quarantine housing costs, and related services. Item 7D1 is a recommendation to accept renewed funding for the Deputy District Attorney for the provision of continuing prosecutor services related to the high-intensity drug trafficking areas. Task force in the amount of $125,000 with no match from the Office of National Drug Control Policy award to Nevada, HITA for the restrictive period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2020, with remaining $47,000 position costs covered by the District Attorney General Fund budget, and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the necessary amendments. Item 7D2 is a recommendation to accept an amended notice of subaward for the 2020 Victims of Crime Act, VOCA, grant to the District Attorney's Office in the amount of $34,027. There is an $8,507 required match from the State of Nevada Department of Health and Human Services Division of Children and Family Service to provide counseling services from July 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2020. Direct the comptroller to make the necessary budget amendments and retroactively authorize the district attorney or his designee to sign the agreement. This award represents the remaining 50% of the 2020 award. Item 7D3 is a recommendation to accept an amended notice of subaward for the 2020 Victims of Crime Act grant to the District Attorney's Office in the amount of $154,430 with a $38,508 required match from the State of Nevada Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, to provide the intermittent hourly victim witness advocate and forensic interview viewer positions as approved by the Job Evaluation Committee from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Direct Human Services to create the necessary positions and direct the comptroller to make the necessary budget adjustments and retroactively authorize the district attorney or his designee to sign the agreement. This award, the final 50% of the FY 2020 award. 7D4 is a recommendation to accept the amended notice of award for the 2020 Victims of Crime Act grant to the district attorney's office on the amount of $98,295 with a $24,574 required match from the State of Nevada Department of Health Human Services Division of Children and Family Service to provide funding for an existing part-time victim advocate and a new intermittent hourly victim advocate position is approved by the Job Evaluation Committee, along with related travel equipment and victim services from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Direct the comptroller to make the necessary budget amendments and retroactively authorize the district attorney of the designee to sign the grant agreement. This award represents the remaining 50% of the total FY 2020 award. 75 is the recommendation to accept Justice Assistance Grant to the District Attorney's Office in the amount of $46,093 with no match from the State of Nevada Department of Public Safety, Office of the Criminal Justice Assistance to fund equipment and training retroactive to October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020. If approved, direct the comptroller to make the necessary budget adjustments and retroactively authorize the district attorney to sign the agreement. Item 76 is a recommendation to accept the National Children's Alliance grant, chapter grant to the District Attorney's Office acting as the fiscal agent for the Children's Advocacy Centers of Nevada in the amount of $64,000 with no match. from the U.S. Department of Justice through the National Children's Alliance to fund chapter activities retroactive from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. If approved, direct the comptroller to make necessary budget adjustments and retroactively authorize the district attorney to sign the cooperative agreement. Item 77 is a recommendation to accept a Western Regional Children's Advocacy Center grant to the District Attorney's Office as the fiscal agent of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Nevada in the amount of $11,250 with no match from the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention through the Rady Children's Hospital, San Diego, to fund chapter activities retroactive from October 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. If approved, direct the comptroller to make the necessary budget amendments and retroactively authorize the district attorney to sign the grant agreement. Item 7E1 is a recommendation to award invitation to bid number 3131-20 to ammunition on behalf of the Washoe County Sheriff's Office to the lowest responsive and responsible bidders. Staff recommends 4 respondents, estimated total amount in excess of $115,000 annually, funding permitting, and authorize the purchasing and contracts manager to execute a 1-year agreement beginning July 1st, 2020, with the option of 2 1-year extensions upon mutual agreement at the discretion of the county and subject to available funding. Item 7E2 is a recommendation to accept 2021 Victims of Crime Act amount not to exceed $10,000. 25% in-kind match required was administered through the State of Nevada Department of Health and Human Services Division of Child Family Services to be used to pay travel and training costs for the Washoe County Sheriff's Office Victim Advocate and to provide emergency housing and emergency services such as food and shelter for victims of domestic violence for the grant period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, and if approved, direct the comptroller to make the necessary budget amendments. Item 7F1 is a recommendation to accept a grant award for the Senior Support Fund at the Community Foundation of Western Nevada in the amount of $52,800, no county match, retroactive April 16th, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, to assist with the home delivered meal program. Direct the comptroller's office to make the necessary budget amendments. Item 7F2 is a recommendation to approve a 1-year agreement in support of laundering services on the Washoe County Human Service Agency's Our Place campus between Washoe County and Qual Econ USA in the amount of $115,000, retroactive to the period of June 8th, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. And if approved, authorize the purchase and contracts manager to execute the contract through the Human Services Agency. 7F2 is a recommendation to accept, 7F3 is a recommendation to accept the FY20 COVID-19 subaward from the State of Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health to provide contract caseworkers to conduct triage and facilitate placement of individuals needing shelter to quarantine related to COVID-19 in the amount of $38,000 with no county match, retroactive from May 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2020. Authorize the Director of Human Services Agency to execute the grant agreement and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the necessary budget adjustments.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any discussion or any public comment signed in for the consent agenda?
I have no emails, sir.
Do we have anybody on Zoom? All right, okay. I have a motion for approval, second by Commissioner Herman. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Was Commissioner
Aye.
Dunn? Oh, thank you.
Oh, I thought I heard her, sorry. Thank you, Commissioner. So we've got, motion carries unanimously with all voters, all commissioners voting. All right, so we are on to, we have a quick block vote. Madam Vice Chair, do you want to put us in a recommend a block vote this morning?
Sure. I would recommend that we put items 12, 13, and 14 in a block vote.
Okay. I have a recommend.
That's in the form of a motion.
All right. I have a motion to block vote items 12, 13, and 14. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Herman. So, Mr. Manager, will you read those items into the record, please?
Yes, item 12 is a recommendation and possible action to ratify a declaration of emergency issued on May 31st, 2020 by Washoe County Manager Eric Brown due to incidents of damages to persons and property in Reno, Nevada, following protests relating to the death of George Floyd, and in which aid emergency was terminated on June 1st, 2020 by the county manager. Item 13 is a recommendation to approve the forensic support services agreements between Washoe County on behalf of the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and various local law enforcement agencies, including the Board of Regents, Carson City Sheriff's Office, Elko County Sheriff's Office, Elko PD, Eureka Sheriff's Office, Lovelock, Lyon, Mono County, California, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Pyramid Lake, Paiute Tribe, Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, Story County, Washoe County School PD, West Wendover PD, White Pine County Sheriff's Office, Winnemucca PD, Yerington PD, for forensic laboratory analysis service fees for the term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, with a total income of $709,104. And then item number 14 is a recommendation to approve the reimbursement of costs incurred by the City of Reno, the City of Sparks, and departments of Washoe County for expenses related to and in support of the enhanced 911 emergency response system and portable event recording devices, and recommended by the 911 Emergency Response Advisory Committee in the amount not to exceed $1,784,260.10 as specified within the adopted enhanced 911 funds operating budget.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. We have a block for all items 12, 13, and 14. Do we have any public comment on this, Madam Clerk?
I have no emails, sir.
All right. Commissioner Jung, do you have a comment that you'd like to make on one of these items?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like staff to look at what it would take, considering we do all crime and forensics for almost everywhere here in not only northern Nevada and central and eastern Nevada, but also California. And that would be, I would like somebody to look into what it would take for every single one of those that we are providing these services of which they are paying us to compel them to have all autopsies come to our medical examiner. We do know when I was on the governor's task force for opioid overdoses, we do know that we are missing giant gaps of data from our autopsies because of the way smaller counties are not required to do any sort of investigation. Usually the coroner is the sheriff, who usually is not a medical doctor or a forensic pathologist. So I would like to, in light of the opioid crisis, not only that, but just overall good human health, that sentinel agency, which is the medical examiner's office, about these bringing the bodies here and autopsying them. I know they cost money, but something could be worked out. That data is critical for everything we do day to day, especially in a time of socially transmitted diseases. So I'd like some answers on that, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I'm in support of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. All right, seeing no public comment and no further discussion, we will close that and bring it back to the board to take a vote, call for the vote on items, the block vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, so that takes us back to item 8. Mr. Manager.
Item 8 is a presentation by the Washoe County Manager, Eric Brown, following a 6-month assessment of Washoe County organization, operations, and policies, including observations and recommendations, and discussion and possible action by the Board of County Commissioners pursuant to the manager's presentation.
Great.
If it's okay, I'll go down front
Sure, if
where
you'd
I
like.
can operate the presentation.
Perfect.
Good luck.
All right. Excuse me. Good morning. For the record, I am County Manager Eric Brown, and it's my pleasure to provide this 6-month assessment to you this morning. I recall back in October when I interviewed for this position, I think the very first thing I said to this group is that I would like to be your county manager. And having spent the last 6 months getting into the job and becoming familiar with the roles and responsibilities, I can tell you I'm actually absolutely thrilled to be here and looking forward to what is to come. I think the other thing that I shared at that time, if you will recall, because I went back and looked at the interview, is that I hope to bring my diversity of experiences, particularly in healthcare, in telecommunications and technology, and in change management in various industries to bear here in the county. And I think based on what I'm going to share with you this morning, you'll see that I think we're starting to do those things. And the other thing is, I think I shared with you then that as your county manager, if you were looking for somebody who could help foster the development of relationships to break down silos both within the county and across the region, that I could assist in those areas. And so once again, I have updates for you. I'll go to the first slide, next slide. So I'm going to talk to you about technology this morning, and he can't get the first. Okay, so this is, just to be clear, this is the assignment as it was articulated in my employment agreement. The county manager, at 6 months from commencement of the contract, will provide and update expectations and assessment to the county for presentation, and that's what we're endeavoring to do today. Other way. Okay, so I'm going to kind of put them in a different order. I'm going to give you an update on activities to date, talk a little bit about my observations in the form of the assessment section, and then finish with my observations about what I think the priorities ought to be near term and what's on the road ahead. All right, so let's just kind of update you on the first 6 months. So I started the job in late November. Actually, it was the Monday before Thanksgiving as Washoe County Manager. It was a great time of year to start because it wasn't the same flow of activity. I got a chance to spend time with my staff and begin making department tours, which actually started right after Thanksgiving in December. One of the things I committed to you back when I was hired is that over the first 120 days or so, I was going to get out and see as much of the county organizations as I can. And I think the first or second week I was here, Commissioner Herman was nice enough to host me up in the North Valleys and give me some appreciation on what goes on there. I've been to Incline Village, although I'd been there many times before, and all over the rest of the county. So a lot of the early time was spent actually making visits to familiarize myself with the organization, as well as what some of the key issues and challenges are. In January, a couple of things. One, I noticed when I started looking into who works for me in the office of the county manager that we were not regularly doing performance reviews. When I asked for the files for the assistant county managers and other direct reports, that information wasn't there. And so one of the things that I'm reporting to you this morning is I think those kinds of assessments, performance reviews, it's a very simple process, are very important to make sure that the priorities as articulated by you, the elected officials, the county commissioners, and the strategies do get reflected in actions by county staff. So we have put in place a performance review process in the office of the county manager with my direct reports. It is my intent that that will become expanded as time goes on, but you got to start somewhere. I started in my own office. The second thing is I spent a lot of time in the first quarter establishing the makings of positive relationships with other stakeholders. And so most significantly with my counterparts in the city of Reno and Sparks, the city managers, but also with other community leaders with whom we will need to work going forward. One of the outcomes of that is very quickly in February we were able to put together, with the help of the health officer and Mike Kismerick at EDON, our Built for Zero collaborative. Now, you haven't heard a lot about Built for Zero since February because right after that COVID hit. But I can assure you that our staff has been working with various stakeholders, and you'll see more of that later, to address the homeless problem here in Northern Nevada as a region. I think there's a lot of good things to come from that in the medium to long term. We also launched, so COVID hit in late February, early March. As you know, state of emergency was declared. And as a result of that, we launched teleworker programs so that the county could remain open for business, but we remained open on a modified basis. Thankfully, the county had already put in place the investments in technology, Office 365, Microsoft Teams, laptop and computer support, that we were able to go to about 40% of our employee base, and they were actually able to work from home. This allowed us to keep people working, keep them engaged, still meet the needs of our public. I will tell you, we learned a lot through this process. I have department heads who have shared with me that as a result of this experience, even after the COVID-19 situation is over, they plan to continue to allow their employees to work from home because in many cases, depending on the job responsibilities, they find that employees can be more productive. They're less distracted when they work from home than when they commute into the office and are in the office environment. It was a very, I would suggest to you that we're doing things now. Necessity is the mother of invention, they say. We're doing things now that I think it would have taken us years to prioritize because we had to in order to make sure that we were functioning properly. Oops, I don't like that. Okay. And then last, I've been working with our County Manager Advisory Committee to upgrade and really revamp that group. We have some of the members who were there under the previous county manager, but we've also begun diversifying it, and diversifying it in terms of ethnic background, in terms of professional backgrounds that are coming to the table. I'm not finished yet. There's more to be done, but I want this to be a body that provides counsel to me as the county manager and to the county manager's office on things that we're doing here in Northern Nevada and how we can do them better, and how we can help the community reach its goals. And I will tell you that it's been a pleasant surprise, frankly, how I have been embraced and how engaged the participants have been. We meet once a month, and I'm looking forward to further progress in that area. In the area of employee outreach, I've spent a lot of time over the first 6 months. You can see the metrics there on the right. We're messaging through Nancy Lewinhagen and her group, the communications group, weekly visits to, we have 25,000 weekly visits to Inside Washoe, our internal site. I have been doing direct to employee emails, particularly during the COVID-19 crisis, to try to keep our employees updated on not only what's going on with the crisis, but how that impacts them in the workplace. We have revamped our new employee orientation format. Here's another one that's the necessity's mother of invention. We used to have employee orientations put on by HR, and they did a great job, but in a room, can't do that right now under COVID-19. So we've been able to do that virtually and still reach the employees. We had our first ever live town hall event. So that was held about 2 weeks ago. Over 500 of our employees attended. I think the attendance would have been higher, but in a theme that you're going to hear more from me today. We actually crashed the system in terms of number of people who were trying to get into the event at the same time. But we had 500 employees. This is an example of the new way, in many cases, we're going to have to do business going forward and communicate with our employees going forward. Rather than getting them all in a big room or auditorium, we can reach them at their desktop and communicate with them, and it's two-way communication. They were able to send me questions, which they did, some of them very candid, which I appreciate. But that's an example of how we're beginning to change the culture to use technology more intimately. Obviously, the COVID-19 response and crisis, I'm going to say this is an example of an event that I think has been good from the standpoint of working regionally with our other jurisdictions in Reno and Sparks. As a result of this, and you heard the report earlier from Aaron Kinniston with regards to the incident management team. We, as a county, have been working very closely with our counterparts in Reno and Sparks and at the Health District to manage through this crisis. We meet 3 times a week. At one point, we were meeting every day virtually. And I think this has really helped to foster better understanding about what each of our jurisdictional needs are and our ability to work together to get things accomplished. And we did accomplish a lot of things that I think we can be proud of. And per Commissioner Jung's request earlier, I look forward to the debrief where we can talk through what did we learn, what worked, what didn't work, that kind of thing. Other point, though, is COVID also caused us to take a hard look at some digital process innovations. And what I mean by that is, if you look at our Community Services Department, for example, building inspections and permitting, because of COVID-19, there was a period there where we weren't able to actually send inspectors to a site to inspect a building. We're now able to upload pictures and videos to do those inspections in some cases. Again, it's an example of a best practice that I think we will use going into the future. I don't know that we would have gotten there that quickly if we hadn't gone through COVID-19 or something like the pandemic. But I want to applaud the organization, the CSD folks, and our tech services group for making that happen. I have another example I'm going to share later. So let's get into the assessment. And I'm going to start with our financial situation. Entering into this fiscal year, as you all know, Washoe County was fairly healthy financially speaking. We had significant general fund balance. We had a stabilization reserve that had been restored since the floods in 2017. Favorable credit rating, and we have labor contracts, 3-year labor contracts that are already in place for our employee associations. Then obviously COVID hit us, and you've seen these numbers before. I'm sharing numbers that have been shared in prior presentations by our finance folks. In the current fiscal year that we're finishing this month, the impacts are already projected at over $24 million. Some of that due to revenue loss, you can see, some due to the costs we had to incur to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. As we look towards the new fiscal year that we start next month, we're expecting another $40 million of pain. Again, a lot of that due to C-tax and sales tax revenue reductions, but also ongoing costs. And obviously the late breaking news that you're all aware of, I got a call last Thursday from the governor informing us that the county will receive $20 million, $20.3 million of CARES Act funding to address our COVID-19 challenges. I just want to say to everybody that may be listening or who's here, we're in the process of working through how best to apply those funds. We do have some expenses, as you can see, that we've incurred already year to date, over $9 million. We're working through with our other members of our other jurisdictions, what are the obligations we need to meet, and then looking forward, what are the kinds of things that we might want to apply those monies for. I will point out that the monies it's a one-time distribution. They cannot be used to pay salaries and benefits. But they can be used for things like testing costs, the COVID-related housing charges that you heard about earlier from Aaron. And so in very short order, as in within the next week, we'll walk through what we think the recommendations ought to be going forward. So that's good news that you get. Obviously, that we're receiving $20 million, but I'd point out we still have another $45 million hole that we got to work our way through. And honestly, and this is for the employees in particular, we still don't know what's going to happen to revenues going forward. That's a challenge that we're going to have to meet. And until the state meets in special session, which was going to come up soon, because we all know that the state has a shortfall, until we know and understand what the financial impact of that will be on our operating budget starting in July, we still have some significant challenges to overcome. Let me move on to talk about some of the other sort of financial related considerations that I think we need to meet. No surprise to all of you that we've got some interlocal agreements and financial arrangements with other jurisdictions that I think we need to take a hard look at. Crime lab analysis was done here recently. We know we've got a challenge in terms of the financial relationship with Reno and Sparks on dispatch. These are things that I think we have to prioritize, taking a hard look at what are the costs and how do we get them to a point going forward where the county is receiving proper compensation for the services it's providing. Won't get there overnight, but I do see this as a key priority because many of these agreements have outlived their usefulness. And we really are going to put some focus against doing that. I put the digital communications print up there because we're also looking internally at some of the operations we do to see if they still make sense to be operating. And as you know, we have a print shop here on the county campus, does a lot of things for various departments. And so we're working with our financial group and with those folks to take a hard look at whether it makes sense to continue to do that. I want to move to the strategic plan and suggest to you, this is an area where I think the county has done really well. I like the strategic plan. It makes sense to me. There are some things that I think we can do to update it, but I'm not recommending any broad-scale changes, particularly given what's going on right now. I do see us strengthening our relationships with our regional stakeholders as it relates to the plan. I've talked about that before. That third bullet point is something that I'll share with you as commissioners, because I hear a lot from our employees about embracing environmental sustainability as part of what we do. We're one of the largest employers, obviously, in the region. We have a beautiful region that we live in. Many of our employees have come to me and said, you know, if we could be better stewards, if the county as an organization can set the example about environmental sustainability and how to be better stewards of the environment, that's something I'd like to sign up for and volunteer for. And frankly, there have been some discussions also with other entities in the region, like Apple and Tesla and others, who are thinking about the same thing, something to think about. And then the fourth bullet point, again, is a reoccurring observation for me. We need to use technology to improve service delivery or create efficiencies to reduce operating costs. And the work from home initiative is just one, but I think that's the tip of the iceberg. I won't spend a lot of time on the plan because I'm not recommending a lot of changes. We are taking a look at it as it relates to those kinds of things I just mentioned. I do notice, and a key observation is we still have a lot of silos, both within the county and across the region. I am spending a lot of time focusing on how do we break those down so that we can work more seamlessly together and facilitate better communication and coordination. The bullet point up there about KPI indicators, I would point out one of the things that I had a lot of experience with working in private industry, certainly in the cable industry and in telemedicine, is key performance indicators. How do you know in a specific department or group whether or not you're delivering good service? How do you measure that? And how do you know going forward whether it's getting better, it's getting worse, or staying the same? There's already been a lot of work done on establishing KPI metrics for our departments. You will see us continue to move in that direction because my belief is it's nice to be able to give anecdotal assessments of how people are doing. I'd like to see metrics for how we're doing. And it's also a way, I think, ultimately of determining whether or not the operating expense investments we're making or capital expense investments we're making make sense. So you'll hear more from me about that in the future. Employee engagement, one of the big areas I think that we need to focus on as well is professional development. I mentioned earlier the fact that we're not broadly doing performance reviews. So I think every employee deserves a conversation at least once a year, if not once a quarter. How am I doing? Am I meeting expectations? Are there things I should be doing better? Same is true, by the way, for those of us who have employees. How am I doing as a supervisor or a boss? How can I help you be more effective? Those conversations should be happening. My observation about the county, we have a lot of great people. They're very engaged, but we have a culture that I think today rewards longevity and technical expertise. When I say technical expertise, the expertise of doing the job. And so that allows people to get promoted. That's great, but we don't necessarily help people who have been promoted into supervisory or managerial positions how to be good supervisors and managers, how to manage people. And the good news is we have a lot of the elements in terms of training materials and content already available. We just don't actually make people use it. And so this is not something that, in my view, is going to cost us a lot of money, but it is something that we need to be doing on a more proactive basis. Technology. I talked about this earlier. I think we've made some prudent investments, as I mentioned earlier, that have enabled us to do things like teleworker programs. But the second bullet point is an important one. We've got a lot of software and hardware platforms that are at the end of their useful life. And that's a concern, because when technology or software or hardware platform is at the end of its useful life, it tends to make an organization of our size make decisions quickly, because you don't have time to think through them or assess a lot of different options. I think we need to get to a point where in our capital budgeting, in our outlook, we are making proactive decisions before we get to a point where we're 1 or 2 years out from the platform being closed down. And I won't spend a lot of time on these, but for the record, here are some of the software platforms and hardware platforms that fall into that category. Some are being addressed. You'll notice the P25 radios on this slide. That is something that we are in the process of addressing along with our other stakeholders. That one at the bottom worries me, our telephones. We've got some challenges, and we've seen how through the COVID-19 crisis, when there's a spike in telephone volume or a spike in email traffic or what have you, or our websites have a spike in usage because people are coming to us for more information. If we don't have our technology platforms together, they don't sustain that. When we first, in early March, when we first started getting calls for COVID-19, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the phones crashed, and it wasn't just once, it was on a regular basis. Again, things that we need to address going forward. I do want to point out a success story, and I'll highlight the health district to do this. All of you are familiar with the fact we've been doing COVID-19 testing at the post here behind us at the Live Event Center. As we look towards the future, we know now that's not going to be a temporary situation. We're going to have to continue to test people. We're going to have to continue to have systems that allow us to report out on those tests and allow people to schedule. This was a collaboration between the Health District and Tech Services that frankly has the impact of saving the county millions of dollars in terms of what we would have spent had we gone out and bought software that can do some of the same things that these folks were able to do using our existing Acela program, which is our core licensing and business software that we use here in the county. They were actually able to build an enhancement to it that allowed for COVID-19 assessments. So when a person or an individual goes online at the COVID-19 website here in the county, they can register themselves, they can schedule a test online, they get email notifications about when the test is scheduled and what their results are. If you think about that, there are a lot of steps there that would have been very labor intensive for the county to undertake that are being handled by this software, and it's a true testament to what we can do as a county, as an organization, if we use technology appropriately to make things happen. Okay, where am I? I want to talk about, I talked about workforce already, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. I do really believe, again, performance reviews, professional development as it relates to providing the requisite training so that I can be better at what I do. Also, that I have more flexibility in managing my career. If I have an opportunity to go do what I do now in another department. And I think some of this we need to make mandatory as opposed to just putting it out there and hoping people will use it. We're getting to, this slide is just to show you what I think many of you already know. We're getting to be a younger organization. Many of our employees are retiring off. That says to me that we're going to have to continue to evolve in terms of how we recruit people and what skill sets we will require of them. But it's a good problem to have, in my view. Let's talk about community outreach. Almost done here. You know, I think there's some things that we need to do to better communicate and represent the folks around the county. And at the top of the list, I think my staff has been meeting with just about all of you individually about the community advisory boards and the need to upgrade that program. And we look forward to coming before you with a proposal here in the near future as to what we're proposing to do. I also point out that 311 has evolved into a primary information source for the public here in the county in northern Nevada. And I'll talk more about that in a second. I also want to point out that in my travels, it is clear to me that we need to tighten up or improve our ability to do outreach, in particular in the North Valleys and in Incline Village. Those are areas of the county, it's no surprise, I think, to anybody on the commission, where it's not uncommon to hear people say they don't feel represented. And as a county manager, it is my intent to work with staff to make sure that we're being responsive in all areas of the county and that we don't have sections of the county where people are feeling like they're being ignored or their needs are not being addressed in a timely way. That is my commitment. Speaking a little further about 311, I put this slide in to show you, these are the categories of requests that came in over calendar year 2019. By the way, in 2018, 311 took about 10,000 service requests. 2019, the year you're looking at there, that went up to 15,000 requests. Year to date this year, we're already at 18,000 requests and we're halfway through the year. Now, COVID has a lot to do with that and the election will have a lot to do with that. My point to you is this is growing as a preferred way for our citizens to communicate with us, to get information. And a lot of those categories are not pertaining specifically to the county. Just look at the city of Reno. As you all know, we get a lot of calls from consumers or constituents who are confused. They don't know that they actually live in the city of Reno, but they come to us. And you can see many of the other categories there as well. So this is just to point out the growth that I was talking about earlier. And I know 311 has had its critics and still has its critics, particularly internally in the organization. I will tell you, as a person, I've run 600-seat call centers all over the country. We need to resource it better going forward. I'm not sure how quickly we can get there, quite frankly, given our financial challenges right now around staffing and so forth. But the concept of it is the right concept. What we need to do, I think, internally is make sure that the linkages with the various departments, each of whom has different expectations about how quickly they should respond to a constituent or a customer, may be very different in the health department than it is in roads, for instance. Those are the nuances that have to be understood and reflected in 311's ability to respond to inquiries. And we're working on that. All right. I'll go back. So let me talk quickly about social media. So this is an area that I've given a lot of thought and observation to because I get a lot of feedback about this from particularly younger members of the county, who will say to me, Eric, you know what? The county doesn't do a good job of communicating with me via social media as an individual, okay? So we do a good job, in my view. My assessment would be our communications group is really structured more to communicate with the media, RGJ or the broadcasters, that kind of thing, and they do a pretty good job of that. We have pretty good relationships. Increasingly, I think we're going to find that our constituents, the public, wants not you as commissioners, but the county organization, the county as an organization, to respond to me as a citizen in whatever part of the county I'm in. And those are two different things. So we're not talking about feeding the trolls and bogging ourselves down in a lot of controversial, non-productive stuff. But I do think there are some things we can do to improve our ability to get information to the public on a one-to-one basis. And we're going to be taking a look at that and coming back with more recommendations about that. All right. So next to last slide. So staff roles and responsibilities. I want to be clear with the Board of County Commissioners. I talked to my team about the fact that the Board of County Commissioners, you are the elected officials, you set policy, we execute. That's our role. We don't set policy. We're not here to second guess the policies that you set. I just want to reinforce we understand that. I will say, I have seen situations since I've been here where there are commissioners who get in the weeds with staff, and sometimes that can be a problem. And so I can talk to any of you individually more if you want to explore that further. I will say again that I think the COVID-19 situation really exemplified for me how our staff working with other partners in the community, whether they're from the other jurisdictions or the business community or whatever, can come up with great solutions if we are clear about what's the policy that we're trying to implement and what's the strategy. But that is an observation. I'm not uncomfortable with the current situation. I just want to reinforce what the roles are, which are probably obvious to you. Regional teamwork, I won't talk any more about that other than to say that's an area of focus. The road ahead, obviously COVID-19 is going to put a lot of financial pressure on the county and the country. This will be a year of recovery and stabilization and adjusting to the new normal. And so I think we have to be realistic in our expectations over the next 12 months in terms of things like new programs or certainly new things that are going to require us to spend additional money. But I do think we're well positioned to handle the change as long as, again, we're breaking down silos and communicating properly. Okay, the regional dynamics are a challenge. And again, I'm telling you something you already know, but as a fresh set of eyes, my goodness, if you're trying to solve the homelessness issues or economic diversification issues, there are many players here that have to be at the table for that. And once again, a lot of my focus has been on making sure we're establishing and maintaining positive working relationships. Doesn't mean we always agree with the other stakeholders, but we should always know what's going on and have the ability to communicate with each other so that we can reach solutions. And that is a key area of focus. And then my last slide, for the record, these are the types of priorities that I've shared with my team that we'll be working on in the year ahead. Again, many of them fall out of the strategic plan. Some of them are based on some of the new elements that I've shared with you today. And I would just finish by saying I welcome any comment or discussion. either now or on a follow-up basis with each of you individually. I think this is a great place to work. I think we've got a great team. I like my team. We can be better, and I will always say that to you. I'm a person who believes in continuous improvement. Comes from my sports background, I guess. Mr. Chair, those are my remarks and my assessment for this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I think that's a great assessment. I think you've done a ton of work amidst of a challenging situation. Like I told you in the stairwell the other day, I think 2020 has been a difficult year to get off on anybody's in a new role as complex as what you're doing. So I applaud you for all you've done.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll open it up to the other commissioners for discussion. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Manager, thank you very much. I so appreciate the time you and your team have put into this, and I know Elizabeth has been a great help, and especially from a technology perspective, and so I appreciate that also. And I really agree with your assessment that we have a great team. We have great employees, and I'm glad to hear you say that as you've taken a lot of time to go and meet with many of them and really get to see the team and how the team works. And we can always improve. I think that's true for commissioners as well. There are things that we all can do better and spend more time, less time perhaps, but more effective time doing things that we need to do. So I appreciate everything you've done. I am really grateful that you're here with us and that you have had such a steady hand guiding us through COVID. Between you and Bob, I really don't know how we would have gotten through COVID without the two of you and your expertise and ability to get things done. So thank you very much for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herman.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that it's such a pleasure to have you on board as our county manager. And you've certainly passed all the tests that you would be able to pass, because you've hit everything that could possibly happen to our county almost. So you've proven to be very, very talented and everything we expected and more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Manager Brown, I too echo my fellow commissioners. And while I believe going through COVID for you was probably like drinking water from a fire hose, I also believe that compressed and intense time, you're probably about at a 3-year mark as a brand new person coming in. So that worked to all of our favors to get you up to speed and to recognize some of these areas that we always know we have to improve. We are a continuous improvement commission as well. We embrace that we know we can always do better and reach higher, and we will continue to do that. I do want you to start, or have this commission start talking about how we could do a broader region-wide effort to continue the work flexibilities here, so that knowing that we're in a recession and knowing what that does to our tax revenue, so that we can continue this effort of more flexibility, less rush hour, et cetera, so we could delay infrastructure, bridges, capital improvements, road repair, air quality issues, et cetera. I think that's a region-wide discussion, and I would love for us to head it, or if you believe there's somebody else that's more adept and easier to move. Sometimes, government is hard to move in that way, but I think we should all be thinking about that, what we'd like to see moving forward. In terms of the employee evaluations, I'm really not happy to hear that. That's something that Senator Rowdy and I worked very hard over at the health district, and why the health district officer was chosen, because he is such a good administrator. They had over 10 years of no employee evaluations, while also being the HR frequent flyers per capita. So I need from HR data of all Washoe County employees, whether they're in the clerk's office, the sheriff's office, health district, because they're our employees. I want to see everybody's data by department or division, or how they are collecting it, what the evals look like in terms of percentages, how long they haven't been done, because that is a very serious and unforgivable, unacceptable oversight that has to be tightened up, exactly for the reasons that you said. If people aren't getting feedback, they don't know what they're doing right or wrong, and we are not developing them as employees. Another issue I want to have a broader discussion about, I don't know if we need it publicly or if this could be the manager and staff collecting data. The accommodation policies we have here, to me, looks like, and this is not just Washoe County, this is across the country, that we never really did want to accommodate anybody, not with any disabilities, not with the underrepresented people here. We just never wanted to do it. We never implemented it. I need to see that beefed up boost. I want to know what HR is doing to be more progressive in that area. And another area I would like us to look at, considering that college degrees cost over 6 figures if your parents don't pay for you, which is only the 1%. Let's go look back at all of our job descriptions in the volume or lack thereof we get of people, and let's start seeing if that college degree is a real necessity, because it is changing, and people can't afford college anymore. And what we see when we are holding down people who are disabled, whether it's physically, emotionally, any other way, that pushes down our ability to enhance social justice for all of these unrepresented people. So those are the 3 points that I wanted to make in the, as an aside to your presentation. I think you are doing a good job at uncovering all of this, and I'm glad we didn't scare you away. This has been wild, and I see it as a blessing, and as I said earlier, it's more than synchronicity. So, Mr. Manager, it's a pleasure, and this board is invested in your success as we are invested in all of the citizens of Washoe County's success. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice presentation, Mr. Manager. I appreciate it. One of the things that stood out to me was the technology piece and trying to stay up with technology. I know in my own business for years, it was constantly a struggle because companies like Adobe and Microsoft were always putting out a new version, and then suddenly there was this incompatibility issue. With respect to my own laptop that the county has assigned to me, it really doesn't work well with Zoom. And we talked about getting purchasing me a new laptop, and I could not come to the position of spending the amount of money for a new laptop so that I could interact. I'm using my own personal device, and staff provided me with a camera, which was great. But I think sadly we're going to be in this position where we're going to be chasing our tail, because technology, as it moves faster and faster and faster, it's always about spending more and more money. And these companies do this quite intentionally, where if you have a piece of equipment or even a piece of software that's 4 or 5 years old, it becomes outdated. And if we constantly have to chase this, I mean, this is going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger piece of our budget. And I don't know how to solve that. I don't know whether we can solve it. But I'm glad that better minds than myself are thinking about this. But I fear that it's this beanstalk that will never reach the top. So I appreciate the hard work and the feedback. I look forward to meeting with you on a personal basis to discuss some of these things that you brought up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Mr. Brown, I have worked side by side with you for the last 4 months. Well, I think some of these days that you and I were probably some of the only few people in the office when it was
Yes.
quite vacant, and we got to spent a lot of time, and I think from my standpoint, when you talk about the regional dynamics, I think you have grasp that wholeheartedly and really truly understand the complications, but not just understand the complications, but I've already provided a thorough way forward to bridge a lot of those gaps. And from outside individuals looking in, comments in that I've had given to me about your response and your ability to address a lot of those issues has been dynamic and impressive. People very wholeheartedly have gotten behind you and feel you that your strengths coming from the outside and being able to identify the challenges that we have, but also bridge those gaps have been tremendous. So I can't thank you enough for doing that, because that is in this community, it's very difficult. I've seen many people fail where you've succeeded, and it's been for me eye-opening. So thank you for that, and thank you for being diligent. And I mean, it's very difficult, and I think you've done a great job with it, and continuing to do it amidst all the challenges that we've had to go through here. And I think Commissioner Jung's right. It might have been a challenge, not always fun to address, but it definitely has catapulted you forward years, I think, in regards to the maybe years off of your life, because I feel like I've taken years off mine.
Yeah,
I know.
I used to have an Angela Davis afro.
I know. That's right. But it really has. I mean, I think you've really moved into this job as a seasoned professional. And this is taken like a duck to water. I mean, really unbelievable. So I thank you for all the time you've put into this, and look forward to continuing to evolve. I like your direction, where you're going with the community and the county. And I think everybody has their strengths and everybody focuses on different things. But from my standpoint, I really do enjoy where you're going operationally with the organization as a whole. From my standpoint, I enjoy the operation side of it, and I like where you're going, and I think this is going to continue to be better. And I as the elected chairman of this board, want to continue to work with you on the BCC issues. And the Board of County Commissioners remains united behind you, but I think we need to I need to help you continue to gather this board together so that we can work together and move forward and complement your movement forward instead of hinder it. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to say one of the things that's been great, all of you as commissioners, you're a diverse group. You've been very helpful to me in helping me learn this position. And not that I'm there already, but I do feel like I'm supported across the board. We don't always agree on everything, but I understand my role. And it has been a real pleasure over this first 6 months getting into it. And I really appreciate the support that all of you have provided me. So thank you.
All right. So this is for possible action today. Are there any public comment today, Madam Clerk, that's been submitted on this?
I see no emails, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do we have anybody via Zoom?
Good job.
All right. No public comments. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. I am looking for a motion to accept the manager's presentation. All right. I have a motion from Madam Vice Chair. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Herman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we have pulled, as I stated this morning, we have pulled items 9, 10, and 11, and that was a decision based upon discussions with the commissioner that represents that district, the county manager, and also the general public. So we are going to bring that back at a later time and date. We are now on to items, we're into our public hearings. We're on to item 15. So item 15 would be our first public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing for today. And we are, Mr. Manager.
So the public hearing is a continuation rehearing of appeal of the Washoe County Planning Commission's denial of regulatory zone Amendment case number WRZA 19-0010 for Highland Village to amend the Sun Valley Regulatory Zone map, a component of the Sun Valley Area Plan to change regulatory zone on 2 parcels, APN 508-020-41 and 43, totaling 54.5 acres from low-density suburban dwelling unit acre, 1 dwelling unit per acre minimum, and general rural to high-density suburban, 7 dwelling units acre maximum, with the 3 acres that are currently GR to remain GR. The applicant is Regal Holdings of Nevada, LLC, for the owner Charles J. Fornaro et al. For the 2 parcels which are located on the north side of the Highland Ranch Parkway and north of Midnight Drive, and if approved, authorize the chair to sign a resolution to this effect. And introduction and first reading of an ordinance pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 278.0201 through 278.0207, adopting a development agreement between Washoe County and Regal Holdings of Nevada, LLC, and Charles Fornaro et al. For Highland Village, limiting the gross density to 4.2 dwelling units per acre on the portions of the property APNs 508-020-41 and 508-020-43, zone high-density suburban. The term of the agreement is 10 years. The project is located north of Highland Parkway and north of Midnight Drive. The project encompasses a total of 2 parcels and total approximately 54.4 acres. The parcels are located within the Sun Valley Area Plan. Property is located within the Sun Valley Citizens Advisory Board boundaries and within Washoe County Commission District Number 5, APNs 508-020-4 and 43. Set the public hearing and second reading of the ordinance for July 14, 2020, and if adopted, further authorize the chair to execute the final development agreement. Community services.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Manager, for reading that for me. With one correction on the last APNs that the manager cited, the correct numbers are 508-020-41 and 43, and this will be bill number 1842, if introduced.
Bill number 1842.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We do, and since this is a continuation and rehearing of the appeal, we do have the appellant with us, and and I guess it would be the representative for the appellant. Mr. John Kropotkin is here to joining us, I believe via Zoom this morning, to discuss his ads, and as we have always offered here, we allow the appellant 10 minutes for a presentation. So with that, we will turn it over to Mr. Kropotkin. Mr. Kropotkin, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
We can. And all of the commissioners were provided with your presentation, your PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to take us through that, we can do that with you as well.
If you'd like me to, okay, I'll be glad to do that, Mr. Chair.
We don't have to, but I mean, we just wanted to give you that opportunity if you wanted to go through it and do that. But if not, we can go right to questions.
I'll tell you what. What I would like to share with the commission is that this is John Kropotkin on behalf of the applicant. You guys recall, I guess that was probably 6 weeks ago when we came to the commission. We had a nice discussion about this. The key points were that there was the concern about the density and the wide range that's established in that particular zoning district. So we agreed to pin it down to the 4.2 that reflects what was needed in for the project. And then the other was, to take it back to Planning Commission. And as you can see in your materials, excuse me, can you hear me okay? As you can see in your materials, we went to Planning Commission and we had unanimous support. They recognized the compromise and the working with the community and some of the CAB members. and getting to a place of, again, pinning it down to 4.2 to the acre. So I hope that, that reflects compromise and what was expected by the commission. I will leave it at that. If you want me to go through the PowerPoint, I'd be glad to. I'm certainly here for any questions, and I can get into the weeds on any of this stuff. We've worked with staff on the findings and all the analysis of the code and so on.
Great. All right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Krimpotek. Appreciate it. Are there any questions for Mr. Krimpotek in regards to this? Commissioner Herman, this is in your district based upon the previous discussion, so.
I just wanted to thank you for working through this with us and following your best judgment, and I think we have a deal here. This looks very good, so
Great.
we're there.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Herman. Commissioner Hartung or Commissioner Jung, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Being this is a public hearing, we do have public comment signed in, and we did receive a number of emails, so I will have the clerk. Madam Clerk, will you read the emails into the record, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. The first is from Darlene Perkins. Hello, I am responding once again to the notice sent to me regarding Regal Holdings of Nevada LLC request to change the zoning in Sun Valley at the north side of Highland Ranch Parkway and north of Midnight Drive. I respectfully request that you please do not change the zoning to allow a development of a denser population that is currently zoned for. My reasons for this request are as follows. Number one, I would think the land purchased by current owners was done with the thought they would be building and living in a fairly rural area with lots of open land between them and their neighbors. Two, the open lands in this and surrounding areas are used fairly heavily by Sun Valley residents and others for dirt bike and other off-road vehicle riding. Adding a housing development would crowd them out, making the remaining areas smaller and causing possible danger to the riders due to having to have more riders in less space. The Hill, number three, the Hill has seen quite a bit of new building of homes, shops, and outbuildings, and a new housing development, even one smaller than originally requested, would fill the mountain with homes and ruin the open feeling of the valley. For the Mr. Chair, I forgot to set the timer. I'm gonna guess I'm at least a minute in, so I'll set it at 2 minutes now. For the Arterial Road, Highland Parkway, to access Sun Valley from the Pyramid Highway direction is already used to capacity by Sun Valley residents and those cutting over to get to Golden and Lemon Valleys, as well as TMCC. Highland Parkway is fairly steep as it enters Pyramid Highway, and when snowy or icy is already pretty sketchy. Add a whole lot more cars and people going to school and work, and I can't imagine the amount of vehicle accidents that will happen. Not to mention the road is one lane in and one lane out, and at peak driving times, the hill has been backed up clear to the water tank. This will really be bad with more population living right on that road. 5, there's a small park used fairly heavily for dog walking, hiking, and family parties, kids soccer and football practice, and many other recreation activities. Increasing the amount of residents that would most likely use that part would make it overrun and not enjoyable to those who currently use it. 6, I appreciate the thought of a compromise to reduce the density requested from 7 dwellings per acre to 4.2 dwellings per acre, but I still think this would ruin the integrity of the valley and its open spaces. It would diminish habitat for the quail, wild birds, squirrels, marmots, and other animals living in the open areas. Those of us that purchased our homes because of the open land would be subject to crowded hillsides, crowded roads, more traffic, noise, and all the other not-so-nice things that come with new housing developments. Sun Valley has for a very long time had a bad rap as a dismal, dirty, trash-infested, low-income area of Reno. I know that with additional residences, we would probably get a new shopping center, another school, and maybe some other new things, but I don't feel these outweigh the loss of the open land. Many of the people that I have that have the trailer lots that are in the horrible condition have probably lived there forever. And that concludes Ms. Perkins' 3 minutes. I will place the email in the record so we'll have her complete comments.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to recommend that the clerk set 1 more minute and read it so that we have a clear, verifiable 3 full minutes. I've had to fight that issue before in an open meeting law complaint, and I prefer it to be indisputable on the record that
Great.
the 3 full minutes were
We'll do that,
allowed.
Nate. We'll go ahead and allow for an additional minute for Mrs. Perkins' email.
Got it. Sun Valley has for a very long time had a bad rap as a dismal, dirty, trash-infested, low-income area of Reno. I know that with additional residences, we would probably get a new shopping center, another school, and maybe some other new things, but I don't feel these outweigh the loss of the open land. Many of the people that have the trailer lots that are in horrible condition have probably lived there forever, buying the land when almost no one lived out there, and have accumulated this debris for all those years. Please don't get me wrong, I hate the trashy lots and piles of cars, tires, appliances, etc., but I don't think adding new homes and more traffic is the answer. Let Spanish Springs be the high-density area with nice homes, and leave the open areas to the existing residents and the people that use these open areas for recreation. Thanks for your attention to my plea. I kind of got to rambling, but I have strong feelings about the area, not changing to be like all the new housing in the Kylie Ranch area on Sparks Boulevard. That area is so crowded now with Walmart on Pyramid, can no longer keep their shelf stocks as they used to, which means another big store comes, and then who knows what's next. Sincerely, Darlene Perkins.
Thank you. So Ms. Perkins was given her full 3 minutes for the record, and her email will be placed on the record. Next email, Madam Clerk.
Next email is from Sherry Fairchild. Dear County Commissioners, as a longtime resident of Sun Valley for 22 years, I'm strongly opposed of high-density suburban building in the location being proposed. The area cannot support HDS building. There is not adequate county services already in the area to support what is already out here. Our roads are deteriorated, only being patched. Traffic backed up at all hours of the day and night. Water at low pressure, schools at maximum capacity, sidewalks on one side of Highland Ranch Parkway for children going to all schools. Please vote no on HDS building. Thank you for your time and attention to this very important matter. Take care and be well. Sherry Fairchild, Sun Valley resident.
Great. We'll place Ms. Fairchild's email on the record. And next we have.
Next up is an email from Judy Jensen. Please be advised I am still opposed to this rezoning request as it appears to be only limited to 4.2 dwellings per acre for 10 years. I do not want to see it changed after the 10-year term. It's already too crowded out here. Judy Jensen, Sun Valley, Nevada.
Great. Mrs. Jensen's email will be placed on the record. Next.
And our last email is from Jennifer Allen. Hello, I am a homeowner in Highland Ranch. I'm very concerned about the building of Highland Village. We currently do not have the infrastructure out here to support another community of homes. At this time, traffic is backed up from Pyramid Highway to Midnight on multiple occasions from people cutting through to get to Spanish Springs. If we're going to add another community out here, the roads will be heavily congested, more than they already are. I have a family and bought in this area for the BLM land that is out here. I did not buy in town because I wanted to live in a smaller community. I am completely opposed to this development being built, especially with the limited access to this area. There are not enough roadways out here to accommodate that kind of traffic and will make our neighborhood more of a pass-through than it already is. This increases the amount of vehicles and most likely incidents that will occur. I fear for my child's safety due to the increase of people and homes in this small area. I do not support this new community at all and think that this was a poor choice to build another neighborhood in this area. We already have enough issues out here without adding to it. This was a poor decision on the county/city to grant the land permits for this subdivision, knowing the infrastructure limitations we have out here. Sincerely, Jennifer Allen, a very concerned homeowner in Highland Ranch.
Okay, great. No further public comment that was submitted to the clerk is under my understanding. Has any been submitted since we opened the item, ma'am?
I don't see anything in my email box.
All right. Do we have anybody in Zoom who wishing to speak under public comment? All right. Seeing none, with no further discussions, I'll bring it back to the board. So any discussion from the board members in regards to this? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
An introduction.
Oh, we have a motion, but okay. This is going to be a little bit more complex because we do have an introduction plus a motion. So we do, so we have a motion for the first part, which would be the RZA, and then we would have an introduction for the second, for the bill 1842. So Commissioner Herman, if you'd like, if this is your district.
Okay, you want the
Sure.
first,
Yeah, we'll do it in segments. So you, if you want to do, we'll do it first.
the moving of the approval?
Yes.
Of the zone amendment case, right? Is that
Correct.
the first? Okay.
Yes.
Now we're unconfused. Okay. Move to approve the appeal and reverse the decision of the Planning Commission and approve regulatory zone amendment case number WRZA 19-0010 Highland Village. The approval is based on the board's ability to make all the findings required by the Washoe County Commission, section 110.810.30 findings, and if approved, authorize the chair to sign a resolution to this effect.
Great. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
You are the motioner. You can't second it.
I know.
Hi, I have a second from the vice chair, so I've got a motion and a second to approve the appeal and reverse the decision of the Planning Commission. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Now we can go on to the introduction. Commissioner Herman.
Okay, so move to approve the introduction and first reading Bill number 1842 of an ordinance pursuant to a Nevada revised statute 278.0201 through 278.0207, adopting development agreement for Charles J. Fornaro et al., limiting the gross density to 4.2 dwelling units per acre. The approval is based on the board's ability to make all the findings required by Washoe County Commission's section 110 dot, or .814 dot 30D, in parentheses, findings, and further move to set the public hearing and second reading for July 14th, 2020.
Great. Perfect. I have a motion, and you should just introduce you. We don't need a second, we just introduction. So we'll set the second reading for July 14th. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Krimpatek, for joining us today. We appreciate it. We are on to item 17.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I know you were going to continue 16, but
Yes.
you had
Oh, you're
indicated
right.
earlier.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for stopping me, Madam Clerk. So we're actually on to 16, and based upon a request by the applicant, they would like to continue the item to a later time and date. The public hearing was already scheduled, though, for today, and are there any, we're going to open the public hearing on item 16, which is the appeal of the denial for the SUP case number WSUP 20002, Boneyard Flat Grading Phase 2. Is there any public comment on that we have been submitted?
I don't see any emails on item number 16.
Okay.
I'm emailing them right now.
Oh, you do have an email?
Oh,
Okay, we have an email, so what we'll do is open that. We are not going to take action on this. We will just listen to public comment, close the item, and then we'll rehear it at a later date.
I'm not sure the name of this person till I scroll down, but I'll just set the timer and read the email.
Please.
Hello, we are homeowners on Mystic Sands Drive in Pebble Creek Estates. My wife and I are confused as to why the retention pond is being put behind our back fence. If the purpose of this retention pond is to increase the holding capacity of the Boneyard Flat flood pool, shouldn't it be located where it already exists, which is south of us near the Shawneva Road? What's it doing so far north? How do you expect drainage from the east to get to the retention pond to the west? All the drainage ditches in Pebble Creek currently run north to south. Another concern of ours is signage for the area to keep out all-terrain vehicles so they don't stir up dust. It's only been about a month since excavation started, and already we've seen numerous motorcycles, quads, and dune buggies tearing the site up and creating unacceptable dust. We are very concerned about all the excavation and wish it wasn't happening. We used to have a nice view of the mountain from our backyard, for which we paid a lot premium of $50,000 and now it's all been disrupted. We ask you to please reconsider and cease and desist excavation behind our houses. Thank you. Jim and Julie Orsi.
All right. Jim and Julie Orsi, Mr. Orsi's email will be placed on the record for item 16 and will be brought back during the public hearing for the when we hear it again. All right, so we will close item 16 and move on to item 17.
Did you?
There's one more email.
There is. Oh, I'm sorry.
That says agenda item 17, I think. It's
So that-
for the next
So
item.
we'll reopen 16. My apologies.
They're actually for 17, as I understand it.
No, it's number 16.
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Ken Brady? Oh, okay. Okay, are there two of them?
Yes, 2 short.
Okay,
All right.
that's the last one. Okay. We've got 2 short emails from Ken Brady, so I will attempt to read them quickly and within his time frame. If possible, I'd like to, I'm going to start his time over, I'm sorry. They're apparently, okay. This is from Ken Brady. If possible, I'd like to add 2 tasks. 1, cut a fire break at the property lines between Pebble Creek HOA and Spanish Springs Associates on the south, east, and north sides of Pebble Creek HOA. 2, create a water retention ditch at the north end of Topaz Lake, at the north end of Topaz Drive. This will help prevent dirt and rocks from entering the drainage ditch in Pebble Creek. If this is not possible, then I will understand. Ken Brady, and he gives his phone number, and that is followed up with, I think the Pebble Creek Spanish Springs Association boundary should be west, north, and south for a fire break. Let me just make sure that's his second comment, and that it looks like it was his second comment. Sorry for the confusion, Mr. Chair.
It's okay.
Is that it, Kay?
Okay. So now we've got everything read in. Okay. All right. So now that we have all the public comment that's been submitted to us on item 16 read into the thing, we will close public comment and the public hearing for 16 and bring that back for a continuance at one of our later meetings. All right, we are on to item 17. This is a public hearing and second reading and possible adoption of the ordinance. So, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Mr. Chair, this item will call for 2 readings. The first is an ordinance amending ordinance number 1000 in order to change the boundaries of District number 24 groundwater remediation and providing other matters relating thereto. That was originally Bill 1840 and will be ordinance number 1651 if adopted. And the second ordinance is an ordinance imposing a fee on the parcels of land in Washoe County, Nevada, District Number 24, groundwater remediation to pay the costs of developing and carrying out a plan for remediation and prescribing other matters relating thereto. This was introduced as Bill 1841, and if adopted, will be ordinance 1652.
Great.
We'll need 2 motions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would make the motion to move to adopt ordinance number 1651 as read by the clerk.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do I have a second? I'm sorry.
Second.
I have a second. Do I have any public comment? This is a public hearing on that?
No. Okay.
Madam
No.
Clerk? No public comment? All right, seeing no public comment on the item, we'll close public comment, bring it back. Commissioner Hartung?
Thank you. May I just under quick discussion?
Yes.
So we periodically bring these additions back, and it's important for people to know what's happened. I mean, this is a scenario that we've been dealing with these volatiles in groundwater and trying to remediate it for quite a number of years. And I'm just very appreciative that the commission is supportive of this. For the simple reason that it's not going away anytime soon, and these plumes continue to grow. These come from years and years of improper disposal of cleaning solvents and other things from businesses, specifically in the city of Reno. So I'm very appreciative again of the commission's support for this. This is of great concern for all of us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Appreciate it, and thank you for all your work on this stuff. All right, so I have a motion and a second to accept ordinance 1651. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, all those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Now I need another motion to adopt 1652.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I will move to adopt ordinance 1652 as read by the clerk.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Hartung. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we will close 17 and close our public hearings for today. Mr. Manager, we are on to 18, and it is my understanding that we do have a need for a closed public session, a possible closed session today for labor.
That is correct.
All right. All right, I'm looking for a motion to recess for a closed labor session.
So moved.
I have a motion. Second. I have a motion by Madam Vice Chair, second by Commissioner Jung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, you do need to query if there's public comment, just because it was action.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment signed in for the?
No, sir.
All right, seeing no public comment on the closed session. All right, thank you very much. We are back to our final public comment of the afternoon. Mr. Manager.
Yes, public comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
Great. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed in?
I do have one email, Mr. Chair.
All right.
From Elise Weatherly. I will be grateful to be able to stand in your presence again. Maybe by then the responsibilities of my life won't be so overwhelming. What I want to discuss is the reason I have to pay to file appropriate paperwork to show that I hand-delivered contempt of court papers to my daughter, Heather Elise Weatherly Danska Perkypile, because I was required to send the original documents via certified mail to an address where I knew she no longer lived. Apparently, I can't show that I delivered the papers unless I pay for it. Looking into that next. My question is, who paid the cost of Greg Shannon's filing of a contempt of court case against me, using my own child support case number to do so? I would like to know what steps I can take to reveal who did what and why he was not required to appear at the hearing held by Judge Robb on June 1st, 2020, when I wasn't even aware there was a case against me because I assumed it was action being taken by the court to hold my daughter responsible for child support. I want to know, since there was no candidate information in any site nor any public debates, why I was held in contempt of court for using the email address he'd provided on his candidate poster to ask him why he made his decisions. Oh, I could determine who I would vote for in the preliminary election for his position. I would like to know why it is that my actually reciting the case number that I had questions about was the reason the contempt of court case was considered valid. I would like to know what steps I can take to ensure that a candidate's stance on things is public information, readily available, with a way to pose questions publicly as well. In closing, I would like to know why the county has so little concern for the support of the child that I'm raising without any help from them. Thank you, Elise Weatherly, Sun Valley, Nevada. Pardon any grammatical errors. Sometimes spell check assumes a word and changes it without approval.
All right, Ms. Weatherly's email will be placed on the record for public comment, our final public comment of the day. All right, do we have any further from Zoom? Anybody signed in wishing to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for our final Commissioners, County Managers announcements. Mr. Manager, do you have anything further?
I think I've said enough for today.
Come on, there's always something more to talk about.
Nothing further.
All right, Commissioner Herman.
Okay, I'll just say that I am looking forward to the day when our citizens can come back to the meeting and speak and make it a lot easier for the clerks and everything, so and get back to normal. So that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Madam Vice Chair, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Commissioner Jung?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Hartung?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I have one last thing I'll add is that we did have a primary election. I want to thank all the registrar of voters for a very unique style of doing our elections, but I think she did a great job. We will be back here on Friday morning to canvass the vote.
That's right.
And so if you want to tune in Friday morning, 9 a.m., this commission will convene to canvass the vote for the primary election. We want to thank all the candidates that participated and those that were successful. Congratulations on moving forward to November. And those who were not, we wish you the best. It's always good to see people participate in local government and participate in those election processes. We all of us know how difficult that can be. So thank you very much. We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. We are in recess. We will adjourn after the closed session. Closed public session, closed labor session. My God, today I'm having a breakdown.